Food for Thought with Professor David Dete.
It's time for Food for Thought with Professor Ndete. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is James Okumu. Eating disorders is what we began talking about 3 weeks ago, gaining a deeper understanding of how it manifests and what kind of people it affects. We haven't finished yet. We go back to where we left off last week. There's a program I like watching sometimes. It's called My 600-Pound Life.
Yes.
And it is usually stories of people who are obese, 600 pounds and above. Mm-hmm. And it follows their journey, goes into their history, how they got to where they are, you know, and how they're trying to lose the weight. And most of them, if not all of them, usually have issues of trauma from childhood, maybe sexual abuse. And so they always say, I find comfort in eating. Mm-hmm. And so they can't stop. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to look at this other side. You have this side where people are so afraid of gaining weight, they don't eat. Then you have this other one where people cannot stop eating. And so they balloon up to such a place where I saw one where the gentleman was so heavy, they needed to demolish the wall of his house on one side to get him out. He can't walk. He sleeps the whole day. He's become so huge, they had to come with a crane to lift him from his house, demolish a wall, lift him with a crane, put him in an ambulance so that they can take him to hospital.
Was it a real life case?
A real life case.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, what about that other extreme?
Well, it really doesn't fit into anorexia nervosa.
Uh-huh. But is it still an eating disorder?
It is an eating disorder.
Uh-huh.
You know, you asked me to talk about anorexia nervosa and the bulimia nervosa.
Yeah.
Yes, I have also photographs here of people who have issues of obesity. Mm-hmm. They keep on putting on weight, and it's obvious to everybody.
Yes.
And they cannot do anything about it, and they will keep on eating and eating and eating. Yeah. That is for sure a metabolic disorder. Oh. A metabolic disorder is a disorder in which the metabolism of food that you eat is adversely affected.
Okay.
So that kind of obesity is a metabolic disorder. Most likely there is a genetic predisposition. Maybe it tends to run more into families than other people. But then, remember, I said, even when you have a genetic predisposition, there are things that modulate the expression of that genetics.
Yeah.
Is it trauma that they had? Is it other condition that they had as young people? What is going on before? Yeah, but it's a severe metabolic disorder, but it does not fall into the anorexic conditions. Yeah, you see, anorexia nervosa, as defined bulimia nervosa, is anorexia nervosa that has not gone to full expression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you see a lot of, when we go back to anorexia and bulimia, do you see a lot of those cases here?
Well, let me put this way. It's not until you start looking for them that it's only when you start looking for them.
Yeah.
And when there are ways of looking for these guys.
Okay.
Or for these girls. First of all, many of them don't reach clinical level.
Oh, okay.
Meaning clinical level, they don't go to see, they never need to go and see a doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And the people may just think it's just fashion. Okay, yeah? So we never get to see those.
Okay.
Because they're in the community.
Yeah.
But if you have instruments, if you have some screening instruments which are used in all over the world, and you are really interested in that kind of thing, you can screen and get those subtle symptoms.
Yes.
Which, when you are asking that girl, do you have what we call morbid fear of eating? it may be, the problem might still be seated in the brain. Okay, yeah? It does not reach the stage where there are changes in the eating behavior.
Yes.
It does not reach the stages where you are getting a medical complication the way we have discussed. If you had some, and you went to a community and you had 1,000 girls, you can screen and say, hey, there's that potential.
Yeah.
But the ones who eventually come to the clinics, they are very few. At least in my case,
Yeah.
although I'm much in research and not, they are few. But if you start asking for these things, then you begin to see them. They are there.
Okay.
We are not seeing them. We are not going to. They are not going to medical facilities. Yes.
Or maybe they don't even get to the extreme cases.
Or they don't get to the extreme cases.
Okay.
And the mothers may have done their job effectively.
Hey, mothers. Mothers, we celebrate you.
You celebrate your mothers.
Yes. So there's also a possibility then that probably, and I think you mentioned this earlier when we were beginning this conversation, for some people maybe it's something they go through at a particular stage in their life, maybe a particular age, and then they overcome it and they...
Yes, very good question. As I said, we tend to see it beginning early adolescent, and goes on to the age of about 25. And by that time, they kind of disappear. The fact that we don't see them does not mean they don't exist. I'll give you an example. Maybe we had talked about, it's a condition called ADHD.
Yes.
Attention Deficit Concentration Disorder, something like that hyperactivity. We used to be taught that by very prominent people that if you went to an examination and you say, I'm seeing an ADHD in a 25-year-old boy, fail. Because they used say they don't go on beyond 20.
Oh.
Okay. Now we know that you can get handouts like you and me who have ADHD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's only because we have learned to recognize the subtle symptoms even in the people who are not clinically presenting with this condition. So the fact that they tend to disappear after 25 does not mean, it only means we don't see them.
Yeah.
Maybe they are there out in the community and we don't see them.
Okay.
I think it's only proper epidemiological studies that will tell us exactly the pattern. There are so many things, Pastor, we don't know, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, very many. Yeah.
So for these both cases, whether it's bulimia or anorexia, at what point should somebody begin to get worried? Supposing as a parent or maybe as a sibling, you know, and you see, you begin to see some of the things we have talked about. At what point do you
I think when you see those things, I call them eating habits. Eating, that should be, ring a bell, that should be a red alert. Find out what could be happening. And more often than not is a confrontation. Of course, a structured confrontation. Not an aggressive confrontation. And that's where maybe mothers don't do it very well. A very constructive confrontation. That this is happening. What does this?
What's going on?
What is going on? What is going on? And it must be very constructive, so that if constructed in such a way that the guy will not feel, okay, fine, I've been discovered, so I'm just going to be a little bit cleverer in hiding it. But are constructive, because these girls could be depressed, and they don't know that they are depressed. They could be suffering from other psychiatric conditions, and we don't know that they have. Why is it that the occurrence of menses pull so much phobia for weight in them to the extent that they want to lose their menses? It's like they want to go backwards. Why? What is going on in their minds? As I said a little bit earlier, The only way to know is to have constructive engagement with the patient in the context of a controlled family and environment.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a possibility of this condition developing maybe later in life?
Well, yes and no, but as I said, majority tend to disappear at the age of 25.
Okay.
But is this also possible? I cannot say no, because, and I'll tell you the reason why. Just because somebody goes beyond 25 or goes beyond 40, it does not mean that the genes disappear.
Yes.
The genes are still
The
there.
genes are still there.
So create the right environment,
Yes.
and the genes express themselves. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So theoretically, yes,
It's possible.
possible.
Something else I came across, it's not related to this too, but I found it interesting. There are people who eat things that we are not supposed to eat.
Well, we call it pica.
It's called pica.
P-I-C-A.
Yes.
Yes.
I've seen one of somebody who eats hair.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, what is wrong with this person? There's one I saw of a lady here in Kenya.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was somewhere in the Rift Valley. They were eating soil. I'm not talking about, the way sometimes when pregnant women eat
Because they are looking for minerals.
I'm not talking about that one. This one, alikuwa napakuliwa mchanga kwa bakuli. And she eats and she finishes.
Yes.
And she said she's been doing that for many years.
Yeah, the muchanga.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know about that muchanga because maybe this lady had some deficiencies in some vitamins and the system was getting things like that. But I think they call and fall under pica.
Okay.
And pica is simply eating things that are not edible or are not supposed to be eaten. Some of them would eat human feces. So
what?
Yeah. So when you see these things, most likely you are dealing with a psychotic condition, and the focus will not just be why are you doing this?
Yeah.
You constrain them. What psychiatric condition is in this person? And if you can identify that psychiatric condition and treat it, and things get better. Is it also possible they got some brain damage? And so you probably need to do some investigation. In other words, when you are dealing with a psychotic condition, and most likely something to do with the brain damage. Yeah.
Unfortunately, all good things need to come to an end. I'm out of time for our segment for today. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your feedback. Keep giving us feedback on 20316 for SMS and WhatsApp 0786 316 316. We will be wrapping up this conversation next week. Have yourselves a good day.
Thank you for watching. Remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get notified whenever we upload new fresh content every day. Stay tuned and enjoy fresh, uplifting content.